Today we discuss a topic I'm obsessed with, record labels. And my guest today is a founder of one of India's long-standing indie record labels, but they are more than just that one thing, just like him. He has worked across different verticals of the entertainment industry, from theater to film to events, and of course now a mainstay in music. His label has managed and groomed the likes of Prateek Kuhad and continues to boast of a roster of insanely talented bands and artists like the F-16s, Peter Cat Recording, Lifafa, basically all the best names from the Indian independent scene. What he's built with Pagal Haina Records is something I definitely wanted to learn from, and I'm grateful to have him here on today's episode. Welcome to Let's Talk Music, Dhruv. Thank you for doing this with me. I know it's long overdue.
No worries. Thanks for having me, Sandhya, and for being so patient.
Not at all. It's my pleasure to host you and, to pick your brain. And I hope the next 1 hour is going to be something that you'll enjoy as much as I'm sure I will.
I sure hope so. I've always been one of those who feels like I should save all the talking and preaching for once I'm done doing the work.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. I mean, that kind of shows with the kind of stuff that you have done, I think. And, honestly, I don't think I've seen too much about you in press or in public, right? Even if I had to look up about, Dhruv Singh, the person, there's not much that you can actually find, which is why I want to know what your journey in this industry has been like, because like I said, you've worked across almost all the verticals in the entertainment business, whether it's film, whether it's theater, to sports management. And you've been in music since, I think more than 10 years, like 2011, right? So what has that journey been like?
Wow. I find it very hard to answer this question and to try and quickly go back to what it was like.
Yeah.
But, I feel like my journey has been, a journey of many failures along the way in
Interesting
terms of trying different things and narrowing in on what I feel like is my sort of sweet spot in terms of the work that I enjoy doing. So everything that I did leading up to starting Pagal Haina I look back and I think of it as a time of discovery where it was about elimination, where I was trying to do a bunch of different things to figure out if this is what I want to do going forward, or at least for the foreseeable future. And that's pretty much where, getting my hands wet at every aspect of the entertainment business came handy. There was a time when I thought, what am I doing? Because I was spending literally 2.5 years in each industry and then moving on because I felt like it wasn't for me. So yeah, I think it's really hard to answer that question, but for the most part, I was one of those kids in school who did not study with a vengeance. I'm so glad I didn't, because thinking back, I feel like I'm so much happier having done what I did in school, which was just have a good time with friends and learn the things that I wanted to learn and had an interest in, and ignore the things that I had no interest in, which is like a big issue with the education system in India is, you're forced to learn things that you probably have no interest in whatsoever. So there is, with some ICSE schools, I guess it's different, but I went to a CBSE school, and for us, it was either you can do Sanskrit or you can do Hindi, and so there was no option for us to try and expand consciousness. So even try and, think beyond what we were being forced fed in school. So I'm really glad I didn't waste any time. I mean, I feel like I was a decent student because I was able to pass or get a decent grade on the basis of just studying for those 1 or 2 days prior to an exam. But other than that, I don't recall ever taking school seriously. And, that sort of because that was the case. Also, I mean, one aspect about me is that I have been obsessed with cricket ever since I can remember.
Oh, okay.
I played for my school. I played for my zone. I got selected in a couple of rounds uh, in order to play for Delhi, but didn't make it beyond that point. While I was living in Australia, I played club cricket
Wow.
at the first grade level for a few years. So for me, it was always that. I was always really obsessed with cricket. And in school, I used to play for the team and, spend a lot of weekends going from Noida, where I lived at the time, to Delhi just for training and things of that nature. So all through school, all I wanted to do was play cricket professionally. But then, class 11 and 12 happened, and my
And life happens.
priorities changed a little bit and things of that nature. So by the time I finished school, the only option I had to try and get into a good college was to use the sports quota, which I tried to do, but I didn't really get admission in a college that I was really excited about. Then I was in a situation where I didn't know what to do in terms of college. And then I came across this new university that was opening in Delhi, and they had a bunch of different courses that they were offering. So I went with a media and communication course to begin with.
What college is this?
This was called Rai University.
Okay.
Basically, it started with our batch and ended with our batch.
What, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Which is really funny. Like everyone, in fact, I don't even have a degree, even though I went to college for 3 years and I never went back to get a degree because it shut down before that. And then
shit.
I didn't even bother. Like some people who went to college with me, spent the next 3-4 months trying to get their degree and knock down doors and whatnot. But I couldn't be fucked. I think the moment college was over, I was ready. Like even before college was over, I think the last year and a half of college, I was already working in theater and events and starting to make some money from there. So I felt like screw this college shit. But
you're anyway going down that path, yeah.
But the thing is, I started I started with media and communication, and then a few weeks into that, I was like, this is not for me. I don't want to learn advertising and copywriting and whatnot. So luckily there was a film and television division also within this college. So then I moved to the film course. And on the first day, I knew I was in the right place because, this was whether on the visual front or the sound front or working as a producer or things, a lot of aspects of filmmaking appeal to me. The whole idea of the film crew being a team and it taking a team to make a good film really appealed to me. So there were many things about working in film that I felt like were very much in my wheelhouse in terms of interest. So I really started to enjoy going to school or going to college and doing the few courses that I was interested in. I was really interested in sound and editing and producing and things of that nature. So those lectures I'd attend. But then some of the other lectures
you weren't too bothered about.
But because I was in film school and my cousin at the time was already doing theater, etc., I naturally gravitated towards the arts. And then my cousin, in fact, was instrumental in, setting me on this path because he was already doing theater at the time. And so he brought me to the director and said, this is my cousin and he really wants to work in the arts. So then I got a chance to work as a stagehand for theater. I was still in, I think, second year college at the time. And the moment I worked on that play again, I was hooked. Something about the teamwork and the stage aspect of it and, the performance being in real time, which I feel like, I can draw a lot of parallels between doing theater and doing live gigs. So again, that was an aspect that really appealed to me. So then I really immersed myself into doing theater. And then for the rest of my time in college, worked on a bunch of plays in various capacities. And towards the end of our course, actually it was a 3-year course, towards the end of it, me and a good friend of mine from college, we managed to get ourselves our first commercial project, which was
okay.
which was like a ad that we shot for O&M, the agency.
Hmm.
It was for some charity type thing, but Johnny Lever was in it.
Oh,
And
okay.
so we had to fly to Bombay and we shot on 35 and things of that nature. So that then became the starting point for me to then delve into film.
Yeah.
So from
Okay.
that point on, started working. We started taking on projects and started doing ads and little things here or there. We made a documentary for Zilla Khan about her father, Ustad Vilayat Khan. So did a bunch of things in film.
Hmm.
And and then I decided I wanted to study film more. And so I decided to go to Sydney.
Okay.
So I went to film school in Sydney then for 2 years, or just over 1 year actually. It was a 2 year course, but I could only afford the first year. So I did that 1 year course and came back to Delhi. But at film school in Sydney is where I met Lucy, who is now my wife and partner at Pagal Haina.
Nice. Okay. That's interesting. So so that was, how long ago was that?
I'm talking, I went to study in 2007. So I went to Sydney in 2007.
Huh.
I studied there for a year. I came back to India in 2008. Then 2008, 2009, and part of 2010, I was working in Delhi. So first I was working for a production house. Then I started working for a television channel.
Okay.
And then I decided I'm just gonna move to Sydney for a bit because Lucy was in Sydney at the time.
Okay.
She had come and visited India and she was supposed to be here for 2 months, but she ended up staying for 10 months. And that was late 2008.
Huh.
So then she was here for roughly 10 to 11 months. And then she went back towards the end of 2009. And then at some point in 2010, I moved to Sydney. And then I was working in Sydney as a freelancer. So I was doing, either freelancing or doing project-based work or editing. So I was basically doing whatever came my way in order to make some money and pay bills and whatnot. But while I was in Sydney is when the seeds for Pagal Haina was sown.
That was my next question actually. So I'm assuming that's where the whole music side kind of.
Yeah. The thing is, I was always like a massive music fan. Like I said,
that's a given, I think. Yeah.
My cousin, he grew up in the States. So he moved back to Delhi to go to Stephens. And at the time, CDs were still very much in vogue. So he brought back big ass folders with all his CDs. He had close to 1,000 albums. And so I got obsessed with listening to albums and things of that nature. And then slowly I followed in his footsteps. He was DJing in Delhi to make pocket money and things of that nature. So I started doing that with him then. So in college, 2 or 3 days a week, I would go and play. I would pretend to be a DJ. And
should pretend to be a DJ.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
I didn't know how to mix. And the music I was playing was the kind of music that we're into. It was music with words, and there's not much mixing. So it was mostly it was curating.
Just fading from one track to the other.
It was fade in, fade out.
Yeah.
But for me, the exciting part was deciding what song follows what song.
The curating. Like
that curation mixtape, making a mixtape aspect of it really appealed to me. So even though I was playing music with words and there was barely any mixing, I still thought of it as, I have to build some sort of narrative or story here. Like, I have to build to a place where in 2 hours people are like fucking having a great time. And then, I have to sort of taper off a little bit. So I used to think about those things a lot at the time. And so music was always like a massive part, but I never really thought of it being something that I'd end up doing for a living, or
Mm.
that I would end up working in the music business or anything. I had none of these thoughts till I moved to Sydney, and I came across a classmate's friend who
Okay.
was her and her younger sister were a singer-songwriter duo
Based out of Sydney.
based out of Sydney. They were called She of the Woods,
Okay.
and I came across their music. My friend played it for me, and I fell in love with it, and I was like, oh my god, this is so fucking good. But I had no idea what to do. But that's when my brain sort of, started thinking along the lines that, you know what, I'm sure there's many parallels between the film business and the music business.
Yeah.
Because at the time I thought, you know what, as a producer, it's my job to make sure I can pull a film together, which
Yeah.
means, bringing the entire team together and working on something creative. And there's good days and bad, but everyone is doing it together. But my job as a producer is to make sure I can put all the pieces of this puzzle together. And then when I started thinking about how that would sort of translate to music, I felt like, you know what, there's so many parallels between being a manager and being a producer for film or television.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I thought, if I can do that, because I've been doing it for a few years now, then I feel like I could also, do this music thing, or at least try.
Yeah.
So I reached out to her, and I was like, hey, I'd love to, manage you and stuff. But at the time, like, it was a really bad idea, because I had come back to India,
Okay. Yeah. This remote, distant.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is,
Tough.
I had come across them a little while ago, but it took a while for these sort of pieces to come together in my head. So by the time I actually decided that I want to try giving this a shot, I had already come back to India, and I reached out to them, and they also at the time didn't really have much support, and they were only starting out. So they were like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And I was in Delhi and they were in Sydney, and it was a disaster because I had no idea what I was doing, and they had no idea what to expect. And so I tried to make like a few things happen, but like, honestly, like, they probably did nothing for them, And a few months went by, and then obviously we reached a point where we were like, this is not working. I know our intention is pure, but you have no idea what you're doing, and we have no idea what we're doing. So, but yeah, so that was the first attempt at it, which ended up being a colossal failure. But what I got out of that situation is this realization that, I'm enjoying this music business thing. So maybe this is something that I could explore further.
Yeah.
And so after that, again, came across this was when Reverb Nation used to be big, the website.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Of course.
And so I came across a singer-songwriter based in Delhi who I thought there was something there. And so his name was Kunal Datta. So I reached out to him, and I started working with him for a bit. And then I came across, I remember this really clearly. I was in Sydney at the time, and a good friend of mine sent me Prateek's music.
Oh, what year is this again?
This is 2010. 2010, I think, yeah. 2010. And this basically my friend and Prateek's sister went to law school together.
Oh,
and so obviously they must have been in the hostel, and Prateek's sister, I think at the time Prateek had written a song or two. I think he only literally had like 2 or 3 songs to his name. And they were all like, half-baked demos and stuff. And so my friend sent me his music and said, "Hey, I know you're trying to work in music and whatnot, and my a friend of mine here, her younger brother just started writing songs, so I thought I'd send you a few." So I listened to them, and at first, I didn't. And this sort of says a lot about the space, the sort of mindset you're in when you, experience something for the first time. But when I first listened to the songs, I felt like I don't like this. I'm not loving these songs. I don't really know what I can do with them or whether I can even help or not. So she sent me those songs, and I think I sort of kind of listened to them. I don't think I was even fully paying attention, but it seemed like I had made up an opinion about them, I then moved on to other things in life. But then again, I think about 6 weeks later or 2 months later, I decided to revisit the songs. It was late at night, and I was like, let me listen to them again once. And this time when I listened to them, I really liked them. And I was like, what the fuck? Because I just listened to them and I thought I had an opinion about them, but I'm listening to them now and I feel like there's something there. I don't know what it was, but I just it was an instinct thing where I felt like there's something here.
So these are all demos you're saying, scratches, right?
Oh yeah, these were scratches, and these were the very first songs that he had written. I think he literally had a grand total of 2 or 3 songs to his name at the time.
Okay.
And so these were the very first, and these were also like really rough, like recordings that he'd done in New York. Even he was sort of experimenting at the time and just figuring out, whether he wants to. I think at the time it was just a hobby, and writing a few songs and whatnot. So then I listened to them and I felt like there was something there. So I reached out to Prateek and I said, hey, I got a chance to listen again, and I feel like there's something there. So when we're in India next, let's meet and see if this is something we want to do.
And Pagal Haina doesn't exist at that point, right?
No, Pagal Haina doesn't exist at that point. I mean, it exists by then because we've started working with Kunal. But
okay, so you had like an entity. Okay.
But it wasn't registered or anything. It was just a name. And Pagal Haina was basically, Pagal and Haina were the first 2 Hindi words Lucy learned in Sydney.
How cute. Okay.
And so I used to use them a lot when talking to her because I had sort of flow between English and Hindi randomly. And so I used to say Haina a lot. Like, you finish asking a question or you finish making a statement and you're like, Haina. And then Pagal was obviously like, Pagal, like whatever, like it just in regular conversation, I must have used it a few times. And those were the words she picked up. So then I was making, it was her birthday, I think, and I decided to make her a mixtape. So on that mixtape, I wrote Pagal Haina Records.
Oh, this is such a cute origin story, Dhruv. I like it.
So that's literally like, there was no thought behind it. I was like, oh yeah, these are the only words she knows. And so let me just, and so when it was time to decide, by then Pagal Haina had become so sort of engraved. That I just decided to go with it. In fact, the funny thing is, when I tried to register the name Pagal Haina, they refused.
What? Really?
Yeah, they said, आप कैसे ये पागल नहीं हो सकता आपकी कंपनी नाम में. Literally they refused. They just outright said, no, you can't register your company. So
yes, wow, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so then,
but it is registered now, no?
Yeah, but it's not registered as Pagal Haina. It's registered as different. But then, Prateek and I met when we both, I think I came back for a short holiday and he came back from New York for a short holiday, and then we met in Delhi. This is, I think, 2011. And we decided to work together. We decided, let's give it a shot. Because at the time, he was doing it part-time because he was at NYU and I was living in Sydney and I was working to earn a living, and it was something I was doing on the side. So it sort of made sense. We were like, you know what? It's neither your priority nor mine in terms of what we do on an everyday basis, but maybe we can try and see what we can do together. So it was literally, I was in Sydney and he was in New York and I was trying to manage him. But in that first 6 months to 1 year, that we worked together, there were a few signs that told me that we should run with this
Yeah.
and try and figure out how far we can get. So then we made a decision that both him and I would move back to India,
Oh, okay,
which
that's big. Yeah.
which we did at the end. I came back at the end of 2012.
Okay.
And so 2013 onwards is when Pagal Haina actually
Yeah. Kind
took
of
off.
like full blast. Yeah.
In terms of me working on it full time and Prateek also being back in India and doing music full time, things of that nature.
Nice. And you mentioned signs. What were those signs?
Little things like, there was at the time there was this website called Indaba Music. Okay.
Okay.
And what Indaba Music did is you could basically submit songs
Huh.
or opportunities.
And
So
this is not an Indian site though.
no, it's not an Indian site. It's a New York based site.
Yeah.
So at the time, I reached out to them and I said, hey, I rep this young singer-songwriter. He's from India, but he lives in New York and whatnot. And I'd love for him, to come into the studio and for you to record, because at the time they were doing these video sessions, like they'd record an acoustic song for you and put it on their YouTube and whatnot. So they were like, yeah, sure, we like it. Have him come past our studio. And this is like when he had zero, zero songs to his name or barely anything to work with. Yeah, he had zero songs to his name in terms of having released something. And so then they were like, yeah. And then, I reached out to So Far Sounds in New York and they responded positively. And then through Indaba Music, I applied for him to play at this music festival in New Orleans called NOLA Downtown. And he got selected for that. So they paid for him to fly from New York to New Orleans and play this gig and whatnot. So there were these few signs that there's something there.
Yeah.
Plus back home, I'm not sure if she's still doing it, but at the time, Shubha Mudgal was doing a festival called Baja Gaja.
Yeah.
And so I knew her son well because he used to be in a band also. His name is Dhaval. Yeah. So he said that, hey, my mom does this festival, so why don't you pitch? So then I sent Prateek's music and they were like, yeah, we'd love to have Prateek play. So that happened. Then I think the final kind of sign was that he basically, his song Raat Razi, one night, he was just sitting in his apartment in New York and he just put up a phone camera and made a video of himself playing it. And I felt like there was something about that video, that was really vibey and it was the take of it was good and the emotion that he was able to sort of tap into was great. And so the moment I saw that video, I was like, let's send this to, so NH7 was the new website at the time in India and the Weekender was just about taking off and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I sent that video to Arjun S. Ravi.
Arjun S. Ravi, yeah.
At the time he was at Indecision.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, this is an artist I rep. Would you want to put this video up on your YouTube? And he responded saying, yeah, we'd love to. And so they put the video up on YouTube. And then not long after, I got a call from them saying, hey, we want to book Prateek for the Weekender. This was the 2012 Weekender.
2012, yeah. It's like one of the initial.
Yeah, I think it was the second one.
Maybe the second one, yeah.
It was the first time it happened in Delhi. The first year when they decided to expand.
Yeah.
So 2012, they did it in Delhi. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was at the racing circuit, Budh International Circuit or something. So
I don't know. Okay.
That he got that booking. And when that booking happened, we felt like, what, there's been a few signs along the way, but this is a big one. So then he came back from New York because he was still finishing college. He came back from New York just to play that gig. And, and went back. And then I think over the next few weeks, or months, we made the decision of coming back to India and giving it a proper go.
And then it was like a full-time
Yeah. So then
project, right?
2013 onwards, it's been
Yeah.
like beyond full time.
Yeah. I think 24 hours not enough, evidently. But
Yeah.
but I had a question on how, I mean, thank you. That's like a really, I really like this, how it's evolved from your childhood to, how you did film, and then you moved Sydney and you met Lucy and Pagal Haina and Prateek Kuhad. I love it. I mean, it's like something that you can write a book about. I mean, that's something for you.
Yeah,
to
well, it doesn't, that's the thing. Like when I think about it to myself, it doesn't seem that exciting at all in terms of a journey, but I'm glad
I'm sure it is. Don't underplay it. I'm sure it is.
Yeah, but I've lived it now, the good and bad. So
yeah, that's true. But honestly, like, I just want to know why a record label? I mean, like, obviously you are managing these two artists. What made you take the decision of actually becoming a record label?
So that's the thing, Sandhya.
Wasn't
the intention was never to be a record label. I have always looked at us as an artist development company and a services company more than anything. But at the time in 2012, I felt like we had to be the label if we wanted to put the music out a certain way. It was 2012, and this is something I mention often. I feel like this is a huge gap in India right now. Is why the US and UK and Australia and Europe, why those places work as music industries is because obviously the industry has been established in these places for a long time. Second is also, there's artists of all shapes and sizes. There's artists who have, but more than anything, the infrastructure around these artists caters to everyone, from the young solo songwriters who want to play at open mics and coffee shops to the biggest of artists who want to play at arenas. There is a sort of, you can be up and coming, and there's places for you to go to try and build. Yeah.
There's an ecosystem that functions.
Absolutely. There's an ecosystem for you at every stage of your career as an artist. But so if you're just starting out, and there are still going to be a few managers and agents and publicists and labels that you can go to, because then USP is working with brand new or up and coming artists. And in much the same way, if you're you made some progress and now you're considered an upcoming indie artist and so on and so forth, there's infrastructure there for you to tap into. There are various people who are fulfilling all the varied roles that are part of the music business. So as a young artist, even though there's pros and cons to it, there's so many more artists there and the industry is so much more bigger. But at the same time, it also means that if you're talented and you're willing to work hard, you can put the right team around yourself. Those options exist.
And also, I guess it's a lot more organized. And
definitely a lot more organized. But that's the thing, just the fact that I can choose from a few labels, or I can decide, hey, I might want to work with this publicist as opposed to this publicist. Those options still don't exist in India. If I were to ask someone, hey, name 3 music PR firms, you would have trouble naming even one.
Yeah, I mean,
let alone 3.
Yeah, I probably figured those out only in the last 6 months.
Yeah, but that's the thing. And that's just one aspect of it. You talk about radio. You talk about out and out booking agencies in India. I think now you can name maybe one and a half, but those only exist because they have a management arm. There is not a single out and out booking agency in India. So what does that tell you? It obviously means that for them to survive as a business, they need enough venues to work with and enough artists to program.
Yes.
They have neither.
Exactly. Yeah.
They don't have venues, to work with, nor do they have enough artists to be able to sustain themselves as a booking agency.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. That's a huge gap in India, is a lot of the really important roles
Mm.
that are required to be fulfilled for you to further your career as an artist
Mm.
don't exist in India. So at the time when I was
Mm.
working, I mean, this is 2030 now, and we decided we want to put out Raat Razi, which was Prateek's first
Mm.
Hindi EP, or first EP for that matter, first
Mm.
major release. You know, I really looked hard to try and find people that we could sort of,
Used to promote.
yeah, or just sort of bring, you know, bring to the team or add to the team,
Yeah.
or at least have a conversation to
Yeah.
explore if they could be part of the team. But there was literally nobody I could go to.
Mm.
There were only those three and a half major labels that are still the ones that exist.
Mm.
Even though now they seem maybe a little more open to exploring what's out there beyond Bollywood. In 2013, there was even the word non-film music didn't exist then.
Mm.
You know, it was straight up Bollywood or nothing else.
Yeah.
So obviously there was no option. It's not like we could go to
Exactly.
labels of
Yeah.
any shape or size to try and.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at the time I thought, you know what, if we want to put this EP out the right way, I have to be the label, I have to be the manager, I have to be the booking agent, I have to be the publicist, I have to be the tour manager. I have to fulfill all the roles
Mm.
in order to make the kind of impact that we want to.
Mm.
So for the first many years with Prateek, I was literally doing all of these things.
360-degree, basically.
Yeah. But it was just me, and Lucy was helping me.
Mm.
And then from time to time, we had an intern or two to carry some of the weight. But for the most part, it was the two of us that were fulfilling every aspect of his career as an artist. You know, I don't think in the 8 or 9 years that I managed him, I must have not been there for maybe 3 gigs.
Wow. Okay.
So, and that's also part of the reason why I feel like, you know, the needle moved fairly quickly.
Yeah.
For Prateek is because we were hyper focused, and you know, we were wearing multiple hats and trying to tick the boxes that we feel like we should be doing for, you know, the kind of growth that we were after. And obviously we didn't succeed all the time, but the intention was to cover as many bases as possible for him as an artist.
Right. And
so that's where Pagal Haina, the label side of it comes from, is because
understood.
We felt like if there's no, you know, if there's no partner out there that we feel excited by, then we might as well just do it ourselves.
Do it yourself. Understood. And like you rightly put, I think at that point of time, see, I'm not talking about the 90s where you did have like non-Bollywood music, but that is a very different era. Things work very differently. Digital distribution, nobody even knew what it was about.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, everything just became about Bollywood. And I think that's why, or the film industry, so to speak. And that's probably why India is so different from the rest of the music.
Absolutely.
Because
that's the thing. I feel like the film industry is still kind of sulking about why has someone come and stolen our thunder, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm so happy about that. I'm like, it's about
yeah. Oh, same here. Because I honestly think that in terms of the kind of control, and there are so many layers here, right? Like, because I feel the film industry has set certain precedents for music, like especially like for artists and for composers, which haven't been healthy in the past. And I think having a thriving independent artist community really changes that dynamic. And which is also why I wanted to ask you, like, you knew that it was a tough situation. Like, so why did you choose independent music? Like, I think you've kind of answered it already, but that is a massive leap of faith that you took, like by actually deciding to steer away from the film industry thing. Was that a conscious decision?
So, you know, here's the thing. I feel like I think part of me also did it because leading up to that point when I decided to start Pagal Haina, I had tried to work for other people. And I had failed
Hated it.
miserably at it. And when I say failed miserably, I feel that comes from not
You're
so
unhappy.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was unhappy, but it not so much that the work I was doing was subpar, because the work that I was doing was good. But
Mm.
I had a problem with authority, in the sense that, I felt like just because I'm 5 to 7 years younger than you
Mm.
doesn't mean my opinion is not valid. So
Mm.
please at least take the time to hear me out before, you know, you
Mm.
decide that this is not a good idea, or this is not what the path that you want to take. And that's the experience that I had at a couple of companies that I worked with. Because,
Mm.
again, I perhaps didn't mention this, but my very first job out
Mm.
of college was working for TCM, which is a company called 21st Century Media that is heavily involved in cricket in India
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and
Okay.
sports management. So that was my first job right
Yeah.
out of college. I was like, at the time, right out of college, yeah, because I was like,
Mm.
I always wanted to play cricket, and here's a chance. So, and at the time, they were managing Rahul Dravid and Anil Kumble and whatnot. So I got
Mm.
excited by that idea. But while I was working for this company,
Mm.
you know, the boss's wife and I didn't get along. And so here's the thing, how every company has this, I mean, now they call it whatever, CSR or whatnot. But
Yeah.
at the time, it was more like, the company was making, obviously doing really well. And so
Mm.
they wanted to also, sort of be perceived as a company that cares for the arts and this and that. So
Mm.
his wife used to, do things like put up a play and, do a ghazal concert, things of that nature.
Mm.
And
Oh.
so while I was working there, we decided to bring the Pakistani band Jal to India for the first time.
Oh, what year was this?
This is, must have been early 2000s. Just
Early
I
2000s.
finished
Okay.
college. So
Okay.
TCN, this company was the company responsible for bringing Jal to India for the first time. This is
Mm.
just after Atif Aslam had left the band. And so they came to India and we did a bunch of college shows, and then we did a concert where the entire Indian team showed up for Reebok and whatnot. So
Okay.
that's where I got a slight taste for the music thing also, And
Okay.
while working at the same company, is when that Zilla Khan or the documentary about Ustad Vilayat Khan happened.
Oh, okay.
So anyway,
'Cause
sorry, I went off on a tangent. What were you asking?
No, because I feel, sorry, even I'm going off on a tangent right now, but when you mentioned Jal, in college, like law school, I think this was sometime 2004, 5, I'm not very sure, but when we had Jal come over to perform.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it was like for us, you're so used to hearing and listening to only Bollywood.
Yeah.
So then that whole concept of non-film music was at that time like limited to Indian Ocean and Jal maybe, and like one of the other two Pakistani bands.
And then it was so exciting because we
Yeah.
like got it like literally, and I was just out of college, and here I was like, and at the time, things between India and Pakistan were kosher. So
Yeah.
it wasn't
Yeah.
like one of those situations where, oh my God, how can it was like, it was accepted and they were loved and they got the response to their first tour was incredible. Anyway, okay, I remember why I brought this. I brought this up because me and my boss's wife didn't get along. And that's because basically this Jai thing was happening and it was time to make the artwork for the concert and all that. And I told her about a good graphic design friend of mine and we engaged him and he made the art and I really liked it. But the guy who made it liked it. I liked it. A couple of other people in the team liked it, but she didn't like it.
Okay.
And so then I've always been somebody who's not shy of sharing my opinion. So I was like, with all due respect, ma'am, I feel like it is working and the reasons that whatever. Basically, it was one of those conversations where I told her that I'm sorry, but I disagree with you. I think, and she did not take that well. So that point on, I started getting some grief at work in general.
Mm.
And then my boss called me to the office and said, look, obviously you and my wife are not getting along and this is a no-brainer for me. So I have to let you go. Here's 2 months salary back.
Oh, shit.
And so
Okay.
that was my first experience of having a full-time job. Where I was like, really? All I did was share my opinion. And,
that's
I felt strongly about something and I put that out there. And that resulted in me getting fired. So
That's
anyway,
so
that
sad.
was one experience. And then after I came back from film school and I was working, like I mentioned to you, I worked at a production house and then I worked for a television channel. In both those jobs, I would, after the first month or two, I was like, why am I even doing this? Like, I wasn't enjoying the work. The people I was reporting to didn't inspire me at all. It was just mundane. It was just like, I'm young and I'm already doing this, caught up in this fucking rat race of waking up and not being excited about the work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think around that time, I think I decided, you know what, I should just try and do my own thing because I will always have trouble trying to work for somebody else because I'm not going to hold back from sharing how I feel. And not everybody is receptive or open to feedback, for a lot of people, it becomes an ego thing. So anyway, I feel like it's best for me to just do my own thing.
I'm so glad you had that realization early on. And I had it I think after 10 years of doing a corporate 9 to 5 and then thinking, what the hell am I doing with my life? And I need to do something that really means something to me. So I'm glad that you are able to identify that a lot earlier and save yourself years of additional years of trauma.
Yeah, I guess so. In hindsight, Sandhya, though, I feel like I'm thankful to my boss.
Of course.
And thankful to the other people who...
You're not regretting the experience.
Oh yeah, not one bit. In fact, like I was saying, in hindsight, I'm thankful that I was able to have that experience when I did, because it really did allow me to, narrow in on the fact that
you wanted to do something.
I work best when I'm doing something that I'm excited about and I can call it my own baby. And I was more than happy to sort of, celebrate the wins and learn from the losses, because either way, they were both going to be mine.
Yeah.
So
accountability. So
and once
you have more control over the outcome.
Yeah, and once I started Pagal Haina, then there was no going back. I felt like this is, with every passing year, I felt like I was getting closer and closer to.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But actually, that brings me naturally to the next question. Have you ever been propositioned by a major label? I'm sure you have.
I have, to be honest with you, I have never been propositioned by a major label.
Do you want to be propositioned by a major label?
A few music companies have reached out to me.
You mean Indian music companies?
Indian and one or two overseas also. But that's the thing. I personally don't see myself ending up at a major label ever.
Thank you.
Because I don't think I can go about working the way they go about working.
Yeah.
So but I wouldn't mind some major label money to fund my own company at some point. But
that as long as you maintain creative and authoritative
to give you an example, the PS group. I don't know if you heard about them. PIAS. It stands for Played Against Sam.
Okay, no.
It's a record label, but it's also a collective of record labels. And they have just partnered, I think, if I'm not mistaken, with Universal Music. But Universal Music is the back end. They continue to be the front end and have complete creative control and make all the decisions and whatnot. But they are one of the biggest indie players in the world. And they sometimes tend to fly under the radar because Played Against Sam is a labels collective. But if you actually go and check out all the labels that work with them, there's a lot of the really good indie labels are part of the PS family. So
Oh, wow.
for me,
And okay, but no, I'm so conflicted here because you're saying that there's like Universal at the back of it all, which is like,
yeah, but that's the thing. But you'll be surprised that the major labels are behind many of your favorite indie labels. That's just the
I
way
mean,
it works.
I know the local ones, but
No,
I'm
I'm talking overseas. Many,
then they're not indie, no? How
no,
that's a huge conflict.
so see, that's the thing. The differentiation is they function as an indie label. They
Mm,
make all the
okay.
decisions,
Okay.
but it's like VC, right? It's like getting funding. They've got funding from Universal, but they
Yeah.
have creative control. And
Yeah.
it's, for example, it's a 51-49 deal. So 51 is PS and 49 is
Is
Universal.
the major.
Now, what that does for them is they can still continue to function with the same indie principles that they have built their company on. But when it comes to worldwide network, having a worldwide network,
access to that
and
network,
having the universal backend, you know, that's the best of both worlds. It's being able to function like an indie, but having major label funding.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's actually pretty good. That sounds like a good deal. But
Yeah. But no, I have, at least in India, though, there's not a single major label that I would be caught dead working at.
I'll give you a standing ovation for that statement, too. But thank you. But now since we anyway broached the topic of record labels and like especially the record label business, and given the kind of industry practices that we have, is there any specific industry practice which is usually enforced by record labels that you do not do, and why?
Yeah, definitely. To begin with,
Actually, I'm sure there are many, but I want like the 2 or 3 major ones.
the two major ones are we only do licensing deals.
Okay.
And we never take publishing.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You don't take publishing?
No. And even the label deals that we do are not for perpetuity. There's a term to them.
That's amazing. Okay, great.
And see, that's the thing. I feel like our sensibilities come from us thinking, working as managers.
Yeah, exactly.
The label side of what we do is just an additional service that artists we love and want to work with can avail of if they want to. So that's the thing, you know, PCRC, F16s, Lifafa.
Yeah.
None of them are signed to Pagal Haina as a label. We manage them.
You're artists more.
Yeah, we manage them. We are their management team. Yeah. And all of them have signed with different labels. Our USP as a label is, you know, we exist in a certain niche. We can service a certain kind of artist.
Understood.
And when I say certain kind of artist, I don't mean genre-wise. I mean in terms of where they are in their career trajectory. So once, you know, if you're new or up and coming or just starting out or starting to make a wave, we can, you know, help.
Definitely.
By being part of the team from a label perspective. But once artists have got past a certain point, then Pagal Haina is not the best label to work with, because Pagal Haina is essentially a mom and pop business. It's completely self-funded. We have never taken any money from outside or had any sort of external investment. Pagal Haina has from day one been bootstrapped and run as a mom. And when I say mom and pop, it in terms of, you know, not having any outside.
And you're a true blue indie record label. I think that's you're like textbook independent record label, right?
Yeah, I would say that. And therefore, we don't think of it as a traditional idea. You know, for us, here's another way to look at it. We manage everybody that we work with, but not everybody we work with is signed to us as a label.
Signed to you, okay, as a label. Understood.
Yeah. And so whoever is signed to us as a label also, you know, we feel like we can bring or add value to their careers for a few years and
Yeah.
get them to a point where they can then start building a team around themselves. Prateek is a very good example. Raat
Yeah.
Raat's first EP we released as
Yeah.
Pagal Haina. But then
Yeah.
by the time it was time for the next album, we felt like it's best for it to be a self-funded release and for Prateek to keep
Oh, yeah,
masters and publishing. And so that was an entirely independent release that Prateek paid for. We fulfilled label services for that. So we got paid a certain fee to fulfill all the label services, but we didn't take any ownership or any rights or anything in the music. And in a similar way, the other artists who are signed to Pagal Haina, whether it's Shantanu or Ronak or Kashni or Diti for a while, with all of them, the deals that we did are licensing deals for a fixed term and absolutely no publishing. Because honestly speaking, any label in India that is taking publishing from the artists and is not working as a publishing company and servicing the publishing aspect of that song is, taking the artists for a ride.
Right.
So
Thank you for saying this.
Anybody who's doing that needs to examine what value they're adding to the artist's career, because publishing, I look at publishing as a retirement fund for artists. And unless you're working with a publishing company that will actually work your songs and help get syncs and help set up co-writes and bring in income on the publishing side, no artist should give up their publishing.
Absolutely.
But
I couldn't agree more.
That's a big problem in India.
It's a massive problem,
Irrespective, and it's not a big label thing either. Even
everybody takes publishing.
No name.
Not a big label.
I obviously don't want to take any names, but a lot of the younger labels also are wanting, master and publishing for perpetuity. And what they're doing in return for the artists is
negligible.
Yeah, absolutely. So what makes them think they have any right to own the artist's publishing for life when they're not even going to service that aspect of the business? So I feel like publishing is something the artist should hold on to for as long as possible, unless they get offered a deal by a really good publisher who does that for a living, day in and day out.
Like Anara and all of them, they focus and they have, but also kind of thinking of the publishing, wings that each of these major labels have.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're signed with a major, then I think it's a very different dynamic altogether, because then they are just going to look at however they can monetize the track because they own all rights, right? But with an independent label, very rarely are they actually placed in a position where they can actually leverage the ownership of those publishing rights, like you said.
See, that's the thing. I feel like, if there is now, this has nothing to do with the size of the company. I feel like if there is somebody in your team who is focusing on the publishing side in the business,
correct,
then it's okay for you to propose wanting.
It's a separate business altogether.
Whether it's a co-publishing deal or whether it's just it's just an admin deal or whatnot. Those conversations should only be had if you actually have somebody who is going to service the artists on the publishing side. But if you have absolutely nobody who's working on that aspect of the business, then you have no business taking these rights from an artist, and that too for perpetuity. Which is what
I agree completely with you.
But unfortunately, that's what the norm is right now in India. Is everybody just feels like publishing is just another thing that they need to.
They don't understand how publishing works more, and I think a lot of it also stems from the fact that how the music industry has worked historically with keeping in
in
mind
India.
how,
Yeah.
keeping in mind how the film industry has worked.
Exactly. I think the music business or the music industry in India took its cues from Bollywood.
Yeah,
Because
which
when it
is
started
the
out,
worst.
the whole idea was how to, make the most amount of revenue for the film.
Yeah.
So the whole concept of playback singing and
Mm.
a music director and,
Mm.
the production house either keeping the rights to the music, selling it to a label and buyout deals. And all of these evils have come from the music business being born out of the film business and
Yeah.
that ecosystem being served.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Absolutely.
it continues to happen to a large extent.
It does.
Many things have changed,
Yeah.
which is a really good sign. But for the most part, I feel like a lot of the big companies don't want to let go of that time when they were able to exercise so much control.
Yeah. And I think, and they also, I feel they also play on the emotions of the person who's signing up to the contract, because they're just like, if you don't do it, someone else will. There's like dime a dozen artists out there.
Exactly.
So that they just kind of like pitting people off each other, which isn't ethical or fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now, since you told me, I mean, since we're talking about ownership of rights, what do you think about artists owning master rights? Because I mean, especially with that whole Taylor Swift episode with Big Machine Records, did that change anything for Pagal Haina as a organization? And I want to know what your thoughts are about that. What does it mean? As in, what do you think about artists owning master rights?
I feel artists should hold on to their rights for as long as possible, unless they come across somebody who genuinely is invested in their music and is offering a deal, keeping in account what's best for the artist in or over the course of their career. But again, on the master side, look, one thing that I firmly believe, Sandhya, is that there is no good deal or bad deal.
Yeah.
I feel like, and this is the norm in every business, whether it's music or film or in the corporate world, when an entity sends you the first draft of an agreement, they will obviously send you something that is in their favor.
Obviously, yeah.
Right. And so now it's up to the artist and their team to do their due diligence and push back on the aspects of the agreement that they don't agree with or they're not in favor with. And then the back and forth starts till you feel like you've reached a point where you're okay with a deal. I feel like this is one aspect that bothers me a little bit when it comes to artists is many artists get into deals and then they start thinking about everything they've signed over and how that's not in their favor. And the thing is, well, they sent you an agreement. They didn't hold a gun to your head when you signed it. You perhaps didn't do your due diligence, or at the time you felt like you needed the support or you wanted a team, or there could be a plethora of reasons why you decide to enter a deal. But I do firmly believe that the onus is on the artist and their team, if they have one, to try and reach a point in the negotiation that they are okay with.
Yeah. But can I, if you don't mind, I mean, I'd like to give you an example. It's an actual real-time example where you've had a young artist who's really good, exceptionally good, does not have access to or have the resources to speak to maybe a lawyer or even have a team for that matter.
Yeah.
It's put in a position where where they have to say yes to a label or say yes to a deal, because if they don't, they're going to get blacklisted or, and there are instances of that happening, which I feel is exploitative, because that's like saying that, you either sign this or if you don't sign this, I'm going to give this to somebody else who's, going to sign this as is. why are you asking for all of these things? You should be grateful that I'm even giving you an opportunity. That conversation does happen.
Oh, absolutely. The conversation does happen. But again, I feel like the onus is on the person to figure out what they're okay with and what they're not okay with. What is it that is non-negotiable for them? What is it they're okay doing some back and forth on?
Yeah.
You have to know what you're trying to get out of the deal, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times that does not happen, where in the moment, perhaps the artists feel like, they feel like there's nobody else willing to invest in us or back.
Which is really sad. I mean, that comes from this infrastructure being exploitative by default.
I mean, it is sad, but again, I feel like if you're being coerced into doing something like that, obviously, completely wrong, and that shouldn't be happening. But at the end of the day, you still have to put pen to paper, right? And I feel like we're living in a day and age where it's not difficult to get educated about the music business.
Yeah.
There's enough resources out there on the internet for you to go and read, or at least get a basic understanding. Everybody knows somebody who knows a lawyer. So even if it's just having a basic phone conversation about the few things that you may or may not have doubts about. Look, at the end of the day, just because somebody is an artist doesn't mean it's okay for them not to do their due diligence because they are an artist. You know what I mean? And then later it ends up being this thing, but I'm just an artist. I just write.
No.
But that's not true, because I'm sorry, no matter what business it is, the onus is on the two parties who are involved in negotiating a deal to do their due diligence.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're being exploited, then the onus is on you to say, no, I don't want to sign this deal. Obviously, it's not, I know it's not that easy. And many times artists are young and, they feel like, wow, here's somebody who's willing to work with us on our music. So let's give it a shot and whatnot. And obviously, I'm talking about an ideal scenario without taking names. I have worked with a few artists who have made that mistake. And so it's a common mistake that gets made by many artists, and not necessarily artists who are young, up and coming.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So when it comes to this aspect of negotiating a deal or, signing an agreement, I feel like the onus is on the artist to A, read the agreement, B, try and find somebody who can help them make a little bit of sense of it, and then take the time to think about what is it that is important to them. What is it that they're not willing to give up? Now, if somebody doesn't understand publishing, if you go and type music publishing on Google right now, there's enough information there to give you a basic understanding.
Exactly.
Now, publishing, I know, is a very complicated business, Even people who work in music publishing don't fully understand it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many layers there. But still, just the basic premise of what does publishing stand for, a song, the income that you can make from a song is split down the middle. Like all of this basic information about what publishing means and master means, all of this information is out there. So if we were talking 10, 15, 20 years ago, I would say, there is, you can leave room for the fact that artists didn't really know what they were getting into, because it's not like resources were easily available back then. And, the only job of a manager used to be to close a label deal.
Yeah.
Literally, the manager came into the process to be able to find a label to sign with,
Yeah.
So, but now I think at least these past 10 to 15 years, I feel like there's enough resources out there for an artist to try and understand what, and at the end of the day, if you're an artist and you want to do it for a living, then the onus is on you to understand the revenue streams available to you. And which are the revenue streams that could be a strong point for you? Which are the revenue streams that perhaps aren't for you? So you don't worry about those and you focus on the ones that are. But it is very much like any company who's bringing on an investor will do their due diligence. An artist who is bringing on a label who is essentially an investor or a bank who's giving you a loan, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, I probably look at it like that.
Yeah.
As an advance, right? Yeah.
It's the onus is on the artist to do their due diligence.
Actually, now since we spoke about this whole bank and advance thing, what do you think about recoupment as a practice? Be honest. I mean, you can be honest. You can agree or disagree.
I don't think I can help but tell you how I feel. But with the recoupment thing, I feel like it's something to have an opinion about based on the ins and outs of the specific situation. So for example, if just I can speak about Pagal Haina.
That's very diplomatic, by the way, Dhruv. Don't be diplomatic.
No, I'm not. That's what I'm saying. I'm coming to specific examples from Pagal Haina. If we as a label invest a certain sum of money in somebody's career. Now, with a manager's hat on, if we feel like the agreement that we're presenting to the artist is fair, we're not taking any of the rights that we shouldn't be claiming because we feel like we are adding value when it comes to those rights. The rights that we're not bringing value to, we're not even talking about. Now, in a situation like that, for a company like Pagal Haina, which is essentially entirely self-funded, any money that we're putting into artist careers is money that we have earned. So now, with any sort of investment, you want to try and safeguard it, right? So the idea is, okay, if we have invested this sum of money, we will recoup that money first. But how we do it in Pagal Haina, which is different from how many of the other labels or distribution companies these days do it, is they start seeing income from the music straight away, but they only recoup from the artist share.
Correct.
What we do at Pagal Haina is from the start, 100% of the income goes towards recoupment. So we as a label are also as invested as the artist is because we don't see any income from it till the artist starts seeing income from it.
That makes sense.
So that's the difference. Many of the labels, the deal that they offer you is, we have invested X amount of money in your career. Now, because we have invested X amount of money in your career, the moment there's returns from our investment, we will start to see profit straight away. We will only recoup our investment from your share. What's happening there is the company or the label is seeing profit from day one.
From day one, correct.
But how we do it at Pagal Haina is 100% of the income goes towards recoupment. So the artist can recoup quicker. And the quicker the artist recoups, the quicker they start seeing profit from their music. And the consequence of that, we start seeing income from it.
Obviously.
So how that is functioning is not, so there's that difference, which to me is a big difference.
Absolutely. And I think there's also the whole concept of, there has to be a certain cap on what you're recouping, right? Like that, I know for a fact that there are labels who are very vague about the
Absolutely.
expenses that they want to recoup.
Absolutely. Now that's
And
also a bad practice.
Yeah, that's
It's
I think
important.
that's like
It's important
for
to
an
make
artist.
clear. Yeah, it's very
Yes,
important to
yeah.
make clear from the start what amount is going to be
Yeah.
recouped.
Recouped. Yeah.
Like for example, it's I now I are you recouping only your financial investment, or
Yeah.
are you also recouping the
Effort
value of
kind
the
of-
time invested by
Yeah.
the team
Yeah.
in working on the record? So that's the thing. A lot of I feel like uh, a lot of opinions about working with labels and things of that nature. A lot of them, were formed when there were a lot of these bad practices. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's changed. There's still many companies out there who do it like this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's also companies that don't, and there are ways and means in which to be able to present deals in a way which
Mm.
are not taking advantage of the artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, we are running a company and we're running a business. So we
Correct.
also have to,
It's not charity. That I understand.
yeah. So we also have to find a way to be able
make
to
money.
safeguard our investment. Now, it might take longer,
Hmm.
but as long as we know that at least what we've invested,
Hmm.
we can make back.
Yeah.
That's just a little bit of cushion that is necessary for you to then be in a position to roll the dice with an
Yeah.
artist and be like, you know what? Okay, we're going to invest some money into this.
Hmm. And I think this is a conversation that I have with my artists as well, like people who come to me as clients especially when they're negotiating with a record label. I'm just like, see, you've decided to enter into this deal. So there are these certain things which you need to be aware of. So these are the things that you ask for. I mean, you can't be completely like, oh, you just handle everything. I don't want to get into the whole admin of this entire
that's a big
process.
problem also. Because
Yeah, you can't be that lazy about it.
oh yeah, you can't be lazy, but also at the end of the day, it's your career.
Yeah, it's your career. It's your music.
You
It's your
more than anybody else.
Absolutely.
You and there as their lawyer will obviously at the time give them the best advice basis the information that you have on hand.
Yeah.
But once that deal is closed, you move on in life, right?
Yeah.
It's the artist who has to live with that deal.
Yeah.
For whatever the length of the term is, whether it's a limited term or it's perpetuity or whatnot. So for an artist to not want to understand the ins and outs of what their career works or functions like from a business point of view is A, lazy, B, ignorant, and C, if you then end up in a situation where you're not happy, it's on you.
Yeah.
Because it's not okay to be like, I'm an artist, so I'm only going to write songs.
Yeah. Not be like that today. You can't be like that.
To an extent, it's okay. But you still have to do everything in your power to try and understand the business that you're a part of better.
Yeah. Correct.
Because that'll only serve you. And again, this is a learning that I have had over the years. I feel like in hindsight, as a manager, I want to work or begin working with an artist once they've spent a few years trying to do it on their own.
Yeah. Because someone else was also telling me about this.
Because only then do they have a real world understanding of how good or bad it can be.
Yeah.
Unless you've had to book a gig on your own, unless you've had to talk to a vendor about the tech rider you want on your own, unless you had to figure out your own logistics, unless you had to try to distribute a song and try to come up with how I want to talk about it, unless you have tried to do this once or twice, you don't really understand the entirety of effort it takes to move the needle when you're a new artist. Yeah. And that's a learning that I've had over the years is sometimes when you work with somebody from a very nascent stage, they end up being so protected that they don't have a well-rounded understanding of the business that they're a part of. Even though things are happening for them and they're seeing signs of success and whatnot, but
Yeah.
they don't have the understanding of how certain aspects work. And that ends up being in the long term, it ends up being a bit of a hindrance.
Yeah.
Whether from a communication point of view or from an understanding point of view or from a trying to sort of weigh the pros and cons of a deal or offer point of view. Yeah.
I mean, that's actually that's so true, because that's something, that was a conversation that I had just a few weeks ago with another artist who's a client, saying that, I was like, until you've done it yourself, even when you have a manager, you'll know what to hold them accountable for. You'll know what are the right questions to ask, because you know how it's done yourself.
Exactly. But you also know the challenges they have to face.
Yeah, exactly.
You also know the ins and outs of what those conversations can be like.
Yeah.
And once you have that understanding, only then you're in a position to be able to have compassion or empathy for your team beyond. Because you have been through it yourself. Another really important aspect is, once you have done it on your own accord for a few years, then when you're in a position to be able to have a team and start adding members, then the understanding you have of what the team can do in terms of adding value is completely different. How much you value the team in a situation like that is also completely different. Because after having done it for a few years, then when you're in a position where you have a team that can carry a lot of the weight that you were carrying, that's when you truly feel, empowered, in the sense that, wow, now I have these people who are going to take care of all these things that I didn't like doing.
And kind of executing your vision, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So then you have a team around you to move in a certain direction based on your goals. But
absolutely,
if you haven't had that experience of having to, do the heavy lifting in the early years, then sometimes you take it for granted, or you don't fully understand the value that a team brings, or you don't even understand the scope of the work they're doing or what they have to deal with.
Yeah, I think that I've, at least from what I've seen, I think that's been like the biggest problem that most of them have had. Because it's just like, it's not just about it's not, being an artist manager is not just about getting you gigs. There's so much more to it.
In fact, I would say being an artist manager has nothing to do with getting you gigs.
Yeah, it's got a lot to do with like understanding your career trajectory, and like that person's going to be as invested in it as you.
Oh yeah, like, so, again, a lot of artists frown upon, hey, we don't like referring to ourselves as a brand or a company or an entity. How you want to describe it is up to you. You don't have to use those words. But the fact of the matter is, as an artist, you are a living, breathing, independent business.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not. Because just by virtue of being an artist and putting songs out, you activate a few revenue streams.
Yeah.
So then you have to be on top of that.
Yeah.
So it's okay to not think of yourself as a brand or a company in those words, but you still have to think of yourself as a living, breathing entity that comes with a multitude of factors that are at play. Now, the manager is the person steering that ship, right?
Yeah.
Their job is to make sure that there's a vision for where you want to go. You have common goals that you want to tick off as things progress. And you have to be very clear about trying to define yourself as an artist. And when I say define yourself as an artist, what I mean to say is, like, you have to be proud to exclude.
Yeah.
So, these 60% of people are not my target audience.
Exactly.
I'm not even going to worry about them. Here's the 40% that is my target audience. So I'm going to go deep with these 40%. And so when it comes to booking gigs, the idea has to be to get to a point where you can then hire somebody to be your booking agent.
Hmm.
So that person is then hyper focused on getting you good shows. In India,
We
booking
don't have booking agents. in
booking
India.
agents are glorified managers
Yeah.
because they're essentially trying to get artists gigs or being the ones negotiating whatever deals that may come their way.
Yeah.
You know, but the ideal scenario as an artist is to do it on your own for 2 to 3 years,
Hmm.
then bring on a manager, decide what you want to do in terms of what your vision is as an artist, where you want to be 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 3 years from now. Obviously,
Yeah.
it may not go according to plan or it may go according to plan, but you still have to have those goals so that
Correct.
you're working and that inertia is building, you know, and then you want to be in a situation where you can say, okay, you know what? Now we're doing okay. So we can bring on a booking agent. Now we can expand and we can bring on our own publicist. Now
Mhm.
we're in a situation where we can add it to a manager to our team
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
there are people with specialized skills owning their lane.
Hmm.
And when everyone is doing that, that's when you start to see like success and momentum as an artist because everyone is owning their lane and it's not just you working on your career. It's a whole team of people pulling in the same direction, working
Yeah.
and working on your career. That's why
Yeah.
suddenly you see growth. Prateek is a really good example of that.
Hmm.
You know, Anirudh, who became his manager after Prateek and I stopped working together,
Hmm.
was his booking agent for 2 years.
Hmm.
So the idea was we had got to a point where we felt like, you know what? It's time to start expanding the team now. So
Hmm.
I went to Anirudh and I said, want you to be Prateek's booking agent. And so for 2 years, he was the one booking all the shows. What that meant is it freed up my time
Hmm.
to focus on other aspects of his career, you know?
Yeah.
So then we were able to bring on a US manager and we were able to bring on a publicist on a project to project basis. He
Hmm.
was able to sign a co-publishing deal with a real publishing company that brought Singhs to the table and put him in rooms to do co-writes and things of that nature.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
this all this Singhs he's had recently, including that show on Apple TV,
Yeah.
it's because he had a publisher who lives and breathes publishing. That's what they do as a business, you know, and then, so that's when it got to a point where year on year, there was substantial growth. And that happened because there were people who were owning their lane and were doing the job that had been assigned to them. And so then as a manager, you're almost the one conducting the orchestra. You're the one who has to make sure all the moving pieces, you know, are in place and that the agent is doing what he needs to do and the publicist is doing what they need to do or he or she in terms of the agent op. So the team is basically
pulling their weight and
Yeah.
executing it together.
absolutely. And the moment that happens, you see progress and you see growth. It's not a magic formula, you know,
Yeah.
it's just, it's systematic and you have to try and do it in a way where you can get to a point where you're at par with how the world does it,
Yeah.
which doesn't exist in India. That's why I keep coming back to, you know, even though there's aspects about the music industry in India that are good and are progressing, when it comes to the really important shit,
Hmm.
there's not a lot of progress. In
Yeah.
terms of take venues, there's less venues
Oh,
today than
God.
there were a few years ago. Okay.
Yeah. And it keeps reducing, I think. over
Yeah.
a period
And
of time.
again, to go back to what I said earlier, you can barely think of a music publicist who does music PR for a living.
Hmm.
There is barely anyone. There used to be Nisa from Little Big Noise, Nisa Mendes, and we were so lucky that when in Tokens and Charmed by Prateek, when we were putting that out, we were able to work with her because that's what she did. She was a publicist at the time, you know?
Hmm.
And so that key ingredient of trying to build a career as an artist in India is missing, where
Hmm.
you could have all the talent in the world
Hmm.
and you could have some money saved, But when you try and put a team around you, there's not a lot of options. So that's why so many really good artists and bands over the years have come and sort of fizzled out.
Yeah.
Because like you need that infrastructure around artists for them to thrive. There's only so long they can do it on their own. Na?
That's true.
In India, most have to do it on their own.
Yeah.
There's only a handful of companies out there that are doing artist management agencies or doing work which
Like
is
360-degree kind of management.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. I feel like early on, irrespective of where you are,
Yeah.
it's good to be 360. But at least the option of having a team, even if you're a young artist, exists outside of India. In India, it's a very difficult thing to do because there's no options out there.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anyone doing it it's not a focus point for them. It's probably like, I also do it, and it's not like,
it's not a focus point.
You're not like, it's not an expertise area.
For example, like now Tiger Baby films. Started an activity, right? It's great for the industry.
Ankur, no? Yeah, it's great for the industry. That's exactly my sense.
I hear there's a couple of other film production houses that are starting their own record label. What's happening there is also really interesting is, they've realized that instead of having to deal with some of the difficult labels out there, we're the ones making the film or the show. Why don't we just
have our own label?
Take care of the music aspect also. So it becomes a it becomes an ecosystem, a self-serving ecosystem. And that the good thing is they're not limited to just putting out the music from the films or TV shows. They can also then take on artists. For example, what Ankur and Co are doing with children's music is really interesting route to take. But obviously the idea is for them to also then put out EPs and albums and whatnot. So that's a really good thing. I think the more management agencies and booking agencies and publicists and record labels that we can have in India, the better.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
That have nothing to do with the 4-5 majors. That's what I'm trying to say. Like we need at least 15 to 20 independent companies at various sort of points that need to come into the Indian ecosystem. And that's also not enough. But as a start. So I feel like only then will we actually be able to, really do good things in A&R and artist development and breaking artists and having like a self-sustaining kind of independent music industry in India. Right now, it's like, there's like, you can count on one hand or maybe two hands the number of companies that exist that artists can go to.
Yeah.
But you compare that to the number of artists in India today
that have come out.
Yeah, in terms of independent music, there's so many new artists every day putting out songs.
Yeah.
And at some point, all of them will want support,
Of course, yeah.
But there isn't any beyond just a few companies. And even the few companies that exist, there's only so many artists they can work.
That's true.
Or help. So, yeah.
So, I mean, I think this kind of brings me to also my last question. I think we've identified these problem areas, right? Like we don't have, I think our infrastructure is not as strong as it should be to make music a more sustainable career for artists, especially the ones who are like, joining the industry now.
Yeah.
How do we change this? Like, what do you think? How can we bring about these changes? Like, what can we do? Because I think we are all the enablers, right? If there's a tiered system, I think record labels and the kind of infrastructure we provide as professionals, either as PR experts or legal or, artist managers. How do we get things to change? Is there something that we can do?
But, Sandhya, honestly, I feel like I don't have an answer to that question just yet. I feel like all I can do is try to do it a certain way.
Yeah.
within the ecosystem that we have at Pagal Haina.
Yeah.
All I can do is commit to doing it a certain way, or doing certain things and not doing certain things, or having a bit of a roadmap for where I want Pagal Haina to go, or
Yeah.
the artists that we work with, where we want them to end up. And I personally have always been somebody who feels like, I should just keep my head down and do the work and let the work speak for itself.
Yeah.
And so when I say that, it's to say that, there are forums for you to go and sort of share your opinion and try and have a say on how. But to be honest with you, I don't understand the entirety of it at all. Like, I know the aspects of this business that I have interacted with.
Yeah.
But I have never been in the four walls of a major label to try and understand what their challenges are and why are they only hyper focused on Bollywood music when they are the ones that have the most amount of resources.
Yeah.
It's like that's something that I've always found hard to believe, that, okay, you could be a Universal, but Universal outside of India has a multitude of sub labels.
Yeah.
So, sure, as Universal Music, if you want to stick to your Bollywood lane, you can do it. Or Warner, that's come to India now, or Sony, or whatever. But if there's anybody in this world that has some resources to put towards trying to build a subculture outside of what you're doing, it's you guys. But for some reason, and again, I could be wrong because that's just my understanding of it or my perception of it. But for some reason, I feel like they are the ones who are last in that line. In wanting to try, like they are so hyper focused on just, I don't know, revenue or.
Yeah.
And
it is that.
There's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, that's your business. You have to make money. But if you're in the unique position to also affect culture and also you literally like pave the way. Why won't you do it? Like it took Gully Boy for labels in India to be convinced that they should invest in hip hop and rap music.
Yeah.
It's not like Gully Boys when it was born in India.
Yeah.
But just because Bollywood embraced it, the labels were like, now let's embrace it.
Yeah.
And so that is sad to me. It's like you could have easily been the ones to pave the way for the music because you fucking do it around the world.
Yeah.
So what's stopping you from, doing it here? But so again, that's an aspect I don't understand. This whole aspect of like, so basically what I'm trying to say to you is I'm still in the process of learning how music interacts with the world that we live in India. And so I can, for example, everything we've spoken about today, I feel like I can have an opinion about because these are things that I have worked deeply in over the past 7 to 10 years. But if you were to ask me, hey, how can we make our industry better overall?
Yeah.
Look, I personally, I don't think I have that sort of, I don't have a microscope to try and I feel like the few things that we discussed, for example, like, it's, you can only push for certain things. I can't sit here and control more venues opening,
Yeah.
Am I supposed to sort of work with the artists or am I supposed to try and go out there and, try and like advocate for how we need more venues?
Yeah.
How we need, like, when there's an opportunity to talk about it and share my opinion, it's okay to do that. But honestly, I feel like I am in no position to answer a macro question like that. All I feel like we could do is play our part in trying to do things a certain way and trying to push what we believe in and setting certain principles or doing things a certain way or having a standard, or we can let the work that we do try and sort of be an example,
Yeah.
But beyond that, there's so many things at play. So even if I were to wake up tomorrow and be like, you know what, I'm going to take it upon myself to, I'm like severely ill-equipped to do that. All I can do is just try and do the work that we're doing honestly and, you know, serve what we feel like is best for our artists. And that's the thing. I feel like if we do that, we're playing our part. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I agree with you, as in I don't think as individuals there's a lot that we can do to like change the system, but I think there's like a much larger problem in terms of how people consume music also. I mean, it's not something that's going to change. I feel like there's been a change in the last few years. I feel like people are becoming more aware of non-film music, so to speak. And I think it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to like wait it out.
I think we need to wait it out, but that's the thing. Like, you know, I was reading something interesting the other day. How, you know, when it comes to now the shows we want to watch, everyone is completely at peace now. Okay, if I want to watch this show and it's on Disney Hotstar, I'm going to download Disney Hotstar.
Yeah.
And pay for it. Okay. So like the visual medium or visual entertainment in terms of fiction or documentary or whatever is now, it's been, the power is taken away from that television. And now it's like, if I want to watch something on Netflix, I have to subscribe to Netflix. If I want to watch something on Hotstar, I have to subscribe to Hotstar, so on and so forth. Yeah. You know, I feel like, what if music did that? What if Universal is like, I'm going to build my own streaming platform. And so if you want to listen to all the music that Universal has put out, you come to the Universal streaming platform, you pay whatever subscription, but then it's in Universal's hand to decide how the revenue is shared. So here's an opportunity for a major label to give a bigger chunk of streaming revenue to the artists. You know, it's a really interesting way to think about it. Why not music? Why must there be a universal Spotify that has to have every label's catalog?
Yeah.
Why?
But I mean, I see
it's interesting.
But it's an interesting it's an interesting observation. But why? So I'm just saying from a consumer's perspective. Okay, now a lot of people still crib. Okay, I go to Netflix, I go to like Disney Hotstar, I go to Amazon Prime. There's like different kinds of content that's available in all of it. But the convenience for me to go to like a Spotify or an Apple Music is that I get all the music on it, right? Like I don't really need like multiple platforms. So if you're going to tell me that tomorrow I need to go to different labels or streaming platforms of different labels to listen to different music, will that reduce?
But the thing is, what if before streaming really took off in terms of Netflix and Hotstar and Hulu and whatnot?
Yeah.
If somebody had asked you then, you would have the same response, right? It's like, what? I have to go to 5 video streaming platforms to watch what I want. But now it just feels normal, right? It just feels like, this show is on Netflix, so I'm going to go to Netflix. So what I'm saying is that way.
Actually, that makes sense. Yeah.
All the power right now is with Spotify. You know, they are dictating how they want the payment system of the music industry to be, essentially. And now and some of their investors are major labels. So that's the major labels trying to exercise some sort of control on how the music is consumed.
Supply.
You know?
Yeah, and supply also.
So in much the same way, like, it's just a thought. Like, for example, back in the day, before the whole, you know, music piracy thing happened, and before Steve Jobs decided that it's okay for a song to be sold for 99 cents.
Yeah.
And the whole world had to comply. You know, if you wanted to listen to music, you spent $5, $10, $15, $20 on a CD or a record. So there was real tangible value attached to music because it existed in a physical form. It's like, okay, here's my $15. You hand me a vinyl. I will go back and play it on my play. And it was considered a usual expense. Like, if you want to buy yourself some clothes, or you want to buy yourself some shoes, you want to buy yourself some music and enjoy that experience of listening to the music, then this is what you pay for it. Then that changed. And then it became the whole piracy thing happened. And then suddenly people felt like, oh, wow, okay, Apple Music or iTunes at the time is not a bad middle ground because at least there's an assigned value per song that we're getting. But imagine a song for 99 cents. That to me was a huge moment in the music business because straight away from that point on, the perception was that a value of a song is 99 cents or $1.29 and not more than that. And then what followed was streaming. So it seems like a natural sort of progression. And now it's like even that much doesn't exist as a value that you can assign to a song. Now it's literally down to cents a stream.
Yeah.
So now the artists are the ones that are dealing with the brunt of this. So how do you take power back? I think Bandcamp was a way for some people to do it. Where it's like, I'm only going to put my music on Bandcamp. If you want it, you buy it. You can stream it 2-3 times. If you like it, that's enough time for you to listen and be like, yeah, I want to like invest in this app. So Bandcamp is still that option for people. But going forward, how is it going to change? How are artists going to make more money from songs? And how are we going to assign more monetary value to songs? Because you think about it, how much it takes for one song to be put out into the world. And if you start assigning a monetary value to it, and then to say that, hey, anybody can listen to this song for a few cents, or when iTunes existed, anybody can buy an album for $9.99 or buy a single song for 99 cents. And what did the artist get from that? Like, I think 70 cents or 60 cents or something.
Yeah. See, but if you're taking the same, and you know what, like, and I understand exactly what you're talking about, because in this context of how, say, a Netflix or an Amazon work, they pay each of the films which are put onto those platforms a huge amount.
Exactly.
What are the creators getting here? Nothing, right?
Yeah.
Like whether it's an independent creator or a record label.
So it's basically taking the same Bandcamp principle.
Yeah.
Applying it to labels. Okay.
Yeah.
Universal had enough. The size of their catalog is so big that there would be a lot of music for people to explore. Same goes for Warner. Same goes for Sony. And all the affiliates of these major labels. So if tomorrow that does happen, personally, it might be inconvenient for a small amount of time till people get used to it. But in the longer run, I feel like it's serving the artists more. Because then, then it's literally between the label and the artist to figure out. And, whatever revenue is. So and again, I'm sure there's many ins and outs to it. And there's things that I haven't thought about or considered, but it was just something I was reading. And it was interesting to me to think about it in that way, because I felt like, because there was a time when all we did was watch television, or if we wanted to watch a movie, we had to go to the video library or the DVD library to rent a movie. But then the moment Netflix happened, and then Amazon Prime happened, and Disney Hotstar, so many streaming platforms now. Yeah. It's like all of them have their own audience, right? Yeah. So it's just that. It's like, again, it's them trying to find their audience. Correct. So why won't labels do that? And the audience will come automatically, because if you're Universal and you represent these 500 artists, all the fans for each of those artists, if they want to listen to their music, will come to you. So I don't know. It seems like
I hear you, and I completely understand what you're saying, and I agree. It's just that I just feel like, and then the more you're talking about it, the more I'm just like, like it's really unfortunate that the people who are actually creating the music are not really getting much out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing with Spotify, a lot of people are like, it's completely evil. A lot of people feel the other way about it. I'm sort of, honestly, on some days I like it and on some days I don't. But one thing about Spotify, which obviously is a huge credit, is the music discovery aspect of Spotify.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I can speak for that from personal experience, having seen how it's helped some of the artists that
Yeah.
we work with, you know? And so the other thing about Spotify is it's with, I don't know now, again, I've spoken to people and they've had sort of mixed response to this, but part of me is like, you know what? I prefer the music being on Spotify than selling songs on iTunes. And the whole idea being that with a song on iTunes, if I've paid 99 cents for it, then it's on I've downloaded it then on my hard drive and added it to my library. So now I can listen to that song a million times over the course of 10, 15, 20 years. But all the artists made from that song or this one fan's interaction with the song is 60 cents.
I know.
On Spotify, if it's a good song,
it's a lot more. Yeah,
if it's a good song, every time somebody plays that song, yes, it's a really small amount. And yes, it's not a fair amount to artists. And yes, there's many things about this that, need to be worked on. And some of them are being worked on. But at least you're making a small sum every time or most times somebody listens to your song, which adds up. So if you're an artist who's writing good songs and putting them out in a way where you're bringing fans to your platform, then you are making money from Spotify. If you're an artist who has just put the music out and doesn't have a plan to promote it and market it and bring fans to the table, will obviously not make any money because nobody is listening to the songs. So that's the thing. There's pros and cons and there's various aspects to it. But to me, the way I look at it, I prefer Spotify and streaming to the iTunes era.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Same here. Because I just feel it's so much more convenient in the first place.
Even, for example, vinyl, right? Why is vinyl coming back in such a big way?
Yeah.
It's coming back in such a big way because I feel like people want to go back and feel some of that, that real tangible connection you had when you set time aside to listen to music, and you can't skip songs and you can't be like, 30 seconds, next. You have to commit to that.
Yeah.
Listening to that record for whatever, 30, 40, 50 minutes. And you can't skip songs. Then you have to go and change sides. So, it's a very sort of like, it's a tangible sort of process where you're touching the vinyl, you're like maybe looking at the lyrics, and it's those same 7 or 8, 10, 15 songs, right? That you can also listen to on Spotify. Now, some people prefer digital audio, some people prefer analog audio, but the point is you're still listening. The crux of it is you're listening to the same songs. But for these songs, because they come on a physical record and there's an experience attached to it, people are paying $30, $40, $50 for a vinyl. Those same 10 songs, if you listen on Spotify, how long will it take you to make the $40? So that's why also vinyl is coming back, is because I think people are realizing that, it's as much Spotify is great and playlists and the algorithms and it goes on endlessly. There's so many great things about it. But still, there is still an audience out there who wants to experience music the old school.
In a different way. Yeah. No, and that's fair enough. And I think that's inevitable, right? I think that's inevitable.
Yeah, I'm so glad that's the case.
And whether I think that's going to keep evolving over a period of time. Today's vinyl, and I know cassettes are coming back. And all of these things are going to keep like doing their little like cycle of going and coming. Like it's basically
CDs I'm not so sure about.
Yeah, CDs I'm not too sure about.
Who knows?
I feel like it's like
there could be like an underground wave where suddenly everyone is like, you know what? CDs were the best medium.
And then like you have pen drives coming back because now you have the Sony Walkman coming back. You had like at a time where the iPod was declared dead. And immediately after that, Sony Walkman was announced. And you're just like, but why? I can listen to everything on my phone. I don't need a Walkman. But then there are people who don't want to carry the phone. They just
Exactly.
want to listen.
That's them getting into like, you know,
Yeah.
like audience niches.
Personal, yeah. So I think we are in like a really exciting time because there's so much that's changed and really fast. So there's a lot of like, I think, adaptability issues, but I feel we're going to like overcome them soon. And I think India that way is, we are quite like very, I don't hate using the word resilient, but I feel like we are not opposed to change. Like we are very willing to like accept change, and that's a good thing. And I'm just hoping that it translates to good things for the artists. And what I'm wishing for is that we have more people like Pagal Haina in the industry to like provide a safer environment for an artist to like thrive. And I think a lot of people do look up to Pagal Haina and to the company like for what you've done, because you don't have too many other record labels who are doing the kind of work that you do, right? So thank you for all of that. And thank you for, steering clear from the stereotype that all record labels are evil. So that's great. And I'm really grateful that you took time out today, and we've had like this very, very, very intense, very interesting 2-hour conversation, which I'm sure could go on for 6 hours. And that's something which I tell to almost all my guests that there's so much that we can talk about. And I'm looking forward to like, meeting you in person and speaking about all of this, and like, hopefully coming up with more options to like offer to the industry. So thank you once again, Dhruv. It really means a lot that you took time out. I know you've had a busy day.
No worries, Sandhya. Thank you. Thank you for being patient in making this happen. And thank you for all the kind things you've said along the way about Pagal Haina. I mean, where our endeavor is to just keep at it as long as we can, and do it in a way that we feel like serves the artist, but also doesn't undermine what we're trying to do.
Perfect. That's amazing. And I'm looking forward to like, more work from the label and the artists that you all manage. And I think everyone's very excited about the kind of music that's coming out. Okay, all right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And I'll see you around for the next one.